Thank you for tuning in to Entertain the Geeky, your source for nerd news.
Hey nerds, what's up? This is Jason back at you with more news. I am joined today by my very good friend and video game aficionado, Mike Capuano.
Hello, everyone.
I almost said video game aficionado extraordinaire.
Wow, can I be both?
Just a big title, yeah.
Can I get a business card? I'm just gonna make.
should.
I'm just gonna make a nerd news card. I work at a place where I could actually order cards too.
We do have nerd news cards. We don't have nerd news cards. We have Entertain the Geeky cards.
I'm just gonna make myself a card. It's gonna be really crappy looking, hand drawn. Yeah.
You're welcome to use the logo. I'm just gonna
use your picture though, because people probably won't notice the difference.
No, we do look quite similar, except for the hair.
Hair. What hair for me? Yeah.
I know, I got the ponytail.
Yeah.
So we are here today. Finally, obviously.
Finally.
Obviously, COVID has prevented us getting together and prevented me getting together with really anybody. There hasn't been a lot of news lately, and I apologize about that. But I think everyone out there understands this is a hard time. And we're also dealing with, I
mean, it's my first pandemic.
Yeah, it's my first pandemic. We're also dealing with racial unrest all around our country. And obviously that's changed how we do day-to-day lives and how we look at things. And I hope everyone is staying safe out there from, violent police and from COVID. Please stay safe.
Very similar, aren't they?
Yeah, I know, right? So we are here today to discuss the Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Indeed.
So just before we get started, just to let everybody know out there, we are going to be talking about the spoilers. We are going to be talking about story elements and how they differ from the original. If you haven't played the game yet, head on over to entertainthegeeky.com. There is a spoiler-free review there that I wrote. And it just kind of talks about comparison, right? It talks about what you remember, but doesn't spoil anything for what you don't know. So if you haven't read or played the game, check that out. So you've been warned. So Final Fantasy VII, first impression.
Wow, just jumping right into it.
Yeah.
So my first impression, honestly, was with the demo, right? So,
of course, me too.
So
played that demo so many times.
Likewise. It's a really good demo.
Yeah.
So immediately hopping into it, I was taken back to 1997, and
of course,
I was shaking just the first time I was playing it, and everything just looked so right and felt so right and sounded so right.
I know.
That's a huge part for me, right? Music in video games is one of my favorite elements.
Yeah.
And Hironobu Sakaguchi is one of my favorite composers, not just in video games but in music period.
Absolutely.
So hearing those classic tracks remixed, and knowing that he was involved with this, it was huge. I know that that night we were texting into the wee hours about it, and played it 3 times that night, I believe.
Yeah.
They nailed it. They nailed that opening sequence, and
and some of the different musical cues I think are interesting too that we know because we played the original, right? So when Barrett has his little confrontation on the train with the Shinra employees,
you hear a little bit of the
choral theme is playing during that. So it's very interesting if you're a fan of music like yourself in video games that you knew what those songs were to then hear them in an area you never expected.
There's tons of little leitmotifs in there and callbacks, and I love that stuff. It's very rewarding and honestly, look, you want to jump to the end here? If you want to know my thoughts on this, this game to me was just this interesting scavenger hunt of a game of just going and finding the pieces that really tied into the original, things that tied into the overall compilation of Final Fantasy VII,
Absolutely.
which I'm a huge fan of.
And then, if you guys are unfamiliar, the compilation of Final Fantasy VII is basically every project that they've done that relates to the Final Fantasy VII world since, 20 years ago or so when they started the compilation?
The compilation originally, I think, came out... So the first piece would have been Advent Children. I think that came out in 2004?
Okay, so almost 20 years ago. When they started this.
Close.
But that encompasses Crisis Core, that encompasses Dirge of Cerberus.
Advent Children... there's an anime called Last Order, which looks really cool, but it changes some of the stuff. There's 2 novels written by Nojima, who is one of the writers on the game.
Absolutely.
There's also, I don't know if you've ever messed around with the Japanese-only mobile game called Before Crisis.
I've not. No.
You can actually download a playable copy. There's several characters. You play as a Turk, and there's a lot of different characters you can play as.
I remember seeing a Turk mobile game.
It was supposed to come to the States, but the time it was out, our cell phones just weren't up to snuff. But there is a remake that you can download. But what I did is I just watched a fan translation YouTube series. It's okay.
Sure.
It's okay. It gives a lot of...
The Turks are interesting characters.
Dude, I love the Turks.
Yeah, Turks are amazing.
But yeah, so that's the compilation of Final Fantasy VII.
Absolutely.
And then the other piece of the scavenger hunt, as I called it, is finding the things that are going to lead into the future of what this game is. Because, big time spoiler, it's not just a remake.
No, I think it goes beyond the term, and I think they're kind of playing with that idea. I mean, you mentioned a couple of times while we've talked that Nomura likes his symmetry, right? So remake, rebirth, these are kind of things that I think he's going to work with. I think probably all the titles of these games, the subtitles of these games, will have an R word.
For sure.
Right? That just seems like Nomura's style.
Yeah, I know a lot of people out there are not going to be happy with that, because they think that Kingdom Hearts is this big, convoluted, gatekeepy sort of mess. I don't feel that way.
That's not
true.
I've
also been with it since 2002, I think.
Well, yeah, I can understand where if you weren't aware of Kingdom Hearts and you tried to get in at 3, yeah, you're going to be confused. You're not going to have any idea what's going on. But if you were loyal to Nomura and his brand, it all makes perfect sense.
Like, I love a bit of mind screw.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like the thing is like Nomura has this like gleeful like want to surprise you.
Absolutely.
He doesn't want to just deliver a straightforward thing, be it narrative or just like gameplay mechanics. He likes to mix things up and do things that are different. So, going into this, I was disappointed when I heard that it was going to be multi-part.
Obviously.
Having now played this, I understand, I think, why that is, because I truly do believe that this first part really is the remake. And now what we're going to get, I think, is going to be very different. And it's, and I know you and I have a little bit of a...
We do.
A different take on it. But I think we both agree we're going to get the broad strokes for sure. But based off of the ending of this, they're going to go in some different directions. And like that's Nomura. Like that you can see his hands all over this.
Right. I think for core players, for players who played the original, it will still have all of those things that you loved about that original. But I think as gamers, I like remakes. I played the Resident Evil 2 remake. I played the Resident Evil 3 remake. I've played so many. I played Spyro. I've played Crash Bandicoot. I love remakes.
Sure.
Because I love nostalgia. I love those games. But
I like... Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Like, I don't like a straight remake. I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with you. I was not terribly interested in Spyro or Crash, but what I was interested in was Resident Evil 2 and 3 and this game, because I don't really consider them remakes. I consider them reimagination.
Sure.
Reimaginings, rather.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
there's no doubt.
You take that same base, that same foundation, and you build something kind of new out of it. Anyway, my first impressions were, this is a scavenger hunt. What was yours?
So my first impressions, I remember sitting and playing the demo. I called I was at work that day, and they surprised us with that demo dropping. Yeah. I remember like, oh my God, the demo's dropping today? It's out right now? So I called my wife, because she was going to get home before me, and I called Corey and I said, go to the PlayStation Store, find the remake demo, and download it right now so that I can just play it when I get home. And I mean, honestly, watching the opening scene, getting to control the character for the first time, feeling how the battle felt, I was a little child again, playing this game for the first time. And it's the same game. I mean, the demo is exactly the same demo they gave us of the original game on a Pizza Hut disc way back in the day. Remember when Pizza Hut used to give out PlayStation demo discs?
I do, but that's not where I got my Final Fantasy VII
I got
demo.
mine from Pizza Hut.
I think... Where did I get my Final Fantasy?
Mine came on a disc with like a Tomb Raider demo, a Final Fantasy demo, a Crash demo.
I believe that my Final Fantasy VII demo came from an issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly.
Oh, sure.
Fun story. I'm a horrible person as a kid. I used to go into like Kmart and I would steal the demo disc of the games.
We all did.
Yeah,
I did that too.
So like that's how I got mine. Like that's how I first got that. And I remember what was so interesting about that original demo was that Tifa was in your party.
Yep.
And you could summon Bahamut.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bahamut.
Yeah. But no. So I mean, Corey was laughing. I mean, she was sitting on the couch right next to me while I was doing this. She was laughing at me because like I had my knees to my chest and I was just enthralled by walking back into this game world.
Shannon was right next to me as well. Shannon's my wife for anyone who cares.
And I was squealing like a little child, man. I mean, every time, the first time Cloud opened his mouth and said, "This is a one-time gig. When it's done, we're done." I went, you know, like, it's Cloud.
And dude, beautiful. Can we talk about the English voice acting? It's really good.
The English voice acting is
really good.
And I love how the localization team actually made sure to make the lip syncing line up with English dialogue. Because usually you don't see that in games, right? Like Kingdom Hearts is a perfect example. Oftentimes the lip syncing dialogue of in-game cutscenes is still tied to Japanese dialogue.
What's so interesting about that is, like, a lot of times Japanese voices don't match up with the animations because, unlike in America, the Japanese animate before and then record.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Whereas, you know, we in America try to, you know, like actually do that lip synchronization.
Right.
In Japan, they're like, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't seem to be affecting their gaming industry, so
no, they're doing all right.
Fine. Yeah. But no, so I mean, obviously, I mean, once I got to go beyond that demo, and I had played that demo, I can't even count how many times. I mean, so many times. I think the very first night I played it, I probably played it like 4 or 5 times in a row, just cause trying different things, going different ways, looking at different. It was crazy. But so my initial first impression was they did it.
Yeah.
Right. They remade the game exactly how I expected.
It's not going to suck.
Right. It's not going to be terrible. And that could be so. I mean, you know, say what you will about the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake. The Resident Evil 3 remake is beautiful, but it's very short. And the original game was very short.
So I guess quick tangent. I love the Resident Evil 3 remake. I did.
No, I think it's great.
I think that
I'm not knocking it.
I do think that Capcom did a bit of a disservice to that game and its fans.
Agreed.
I do not think that they gave it the amount of love and attention that RE2 remake got. It's apparent just at the lack of additional content. You get 2 costumes for Jill, 1 for Carlos. That's it. It's apparent to me that Resistance was not a game developed with the original intent of being with Resident Evil 3 remake. We got that because they even realized that there's not a lot of content to this game.
Yeah.
And while I do love it, I was disappointed. That's my big takeaway from that, was just like, I wish there was more to it.
Yeah.
What we got is so good, but boy, do I wish there was more to it.
Absolutely.
Whereas Final Fantasy VII Remake, it gave me everything I wanted, and then it gave me quite a bit more. Stuff. It gave me quite a bit more than I wanted, and I was fine with that.
Yeah. So let's break it down. Let's talk about a few things, because obviously I want to talk about the ending. I want to talk about the implications. But before we get to that, I think we'll save that for the end, right? We'll put that at the end of the video or the podcast here. So first off, I want to talk about how we can look as you know, you and myself have played the original Final Fantasy VII probably to death. If you're like me, I've played it to death.
I played it again after I beat Remake.
I did too. I'm playing it right now
on my Switch. Very cool.
Yeah. So I want to talk about, I mean, obviously it's, you know, from a gameplay standpoint, it's so different because it's been 20, 30 years. I mean, 1997, I think, is when the original game came out. Yep. I mean, yeah, it's been over 20 years since the original game came out. So the combat, right? In the original, we have a very, what at the time was revolutionary, but a very static active time battle JRPG setting, like a Pokemon game, right? Where you command input and your character goes and they do that thing, right? And while it was beautiful and it's great, I don't think that would have translated as well today in a Square Enix action RPG game.
Action RPG, no. But what's so interesting about this game is that it's a hybrid. It's a hybrid of 2 of my favorite styles of combat, because it does have that turn-based element still.
Sure.
With the active time bar, as well as being an action RPG.
The difference, though, is if you get hit, it's because you didn't dodge or you didn't block, right? But it's not an algorithm that determines that.
The active time part comes in with your abilities.
Sure, and magic.
And
pretty much everything.
Yeah, like everything.
Than your basic attack.
And I really, really enjoyed those moments of, you know, slowing time down a bit and being able to, you know, strategically choose the things that I was going to do, especially when the real game begins, which is hard mode.
Absolutely.
I remember when I you know, called you up and I was like, dude, the real game is hard mode. And
Yeah,
at first
made me
you
have
weren't
to
going to
do
play
it.
it.
No,
You were like, I'm not
no.
going to do this, dude. Screw this. But you did it.
I did it.
But maybe we'll get to hard mode. But
Yeah.
no, like
I want to talk about that.
I think in comparison, I think that Final Fantasy VII original worked really well at its time. It just wouldn't have held up, like you said.
Right.
And
that's not to say those kind of games aren't still popular.
Not at all.
Right? Octopath Traveler
Yeah.
is a brilliant
Turn-based
game.
RPGs are my favorite genre of games.
And they're making a comeback.
And boy, am I glad. Like
Yeah.
I like Persona 5, amazingly good turn-based. Octopath Traveler was like my second favorite game of 2018.
Was God of War the first one?
No, believe it or not, God of War was number 3, and I technically cheated with my 2018 list, and I made Hollow Knight my number 1.
Oh, okay.
Hollow Knight originally came out in 2017 on
didn't
PC
get
only.
ported
Yeah, so it was a
2018.
console release. So I cheated.
Yeah.
So really Octopath was was probably my number 3, and God of War was like my number 2.
Sure.
But that's not this game.
Right.
No, I think they nailed the combat in this. I think that what's really, really interesting is that they put so much love and effort into how each character plays.
Yeah, it all feels different.
And it's all viable.
Yeah.
No one character feels underpowered. I will say Tifa to me feels a bit overpowered. Her ability to stagger is incredible.
Tifa is the most powerful character in the game. But I think that's intentional.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too.
She learned under Master Zangan. And even though those of you who have played the remake don't know who that is, you will. Because Master Zangan is important, not only to Tifa's story, but to
He's in the
Rude's.
deluxe edition art book. He's going to be there in the next game.
Rude trained under him too,
Yeah.
which is why Rude likes Tifa.
Yeah, I love Rude so much.
Rude.
He's a character I can cosplay as.
Yes.
Him and Jet from Cowboy Bebop are the two characters I can cosplay
You gotta find
as.
bald characters to cosplay.
with facial hair, you know.
Bald and facial
That's
hair.
all I can do.
Yes,
That's all I can do. I'm not.
And that's not a
I'm
slam
not
on
handsome.
you. I love your head. It's beautiful.
Thanks,
I can
man.
see myself
I like yours
in it.
too.
It looks
Yeah,
good.
thanks, man. But no, like my big concern, honestly, Jason, was going into this was how is Aerith gonna play?
Sure.
I thought for sure, like, this is going to be rough. Like, you know, she's going to be difficult to play.
Though Aerith as a support character is amazing.
She's amazing.
Arcane Ward, where you could just drop a little circle where everybody that's standing in that circle will cast double magic.
Yeah.
Like,
brilliant.
for no extra cost.
Like and her ability to replenish MP.
Yeah. Soul Drain? Like, yeah, are you kidding
Which
me?
becomes super crucial in hard mode.
We'll talk about hard mode. We'll get to that.
I love hard mode. I'm hard for hard mode, in fact. But no, like it's very apparent that they spent a lot of time refining what they were going to do with that. And I know a lot of people were disappointed that you didn't get to play as Red 13 in this game, but
You play as him for the last
he's in there for a little bit. He's a guest character.
Yeah,
like they're saving that for part 2, if that's what it's even.
Yeah,
gonna
the
be.
next installment.
Yeah, there we go. Good call. But the 4 characters you get to play as, man, it's so much fun. And then the weapon customization, total blast.
Right, makes older weapons remain viable throughout the entire game.
Absolutely.
Right. In all reality, once you finish maxing out every weapon, the Buster Sword is the second most powerful attack weapon in the game.
And then every single weapon has its use for different scenarios, right? Yeah. So again, amazingly good job on the team to take that into consideration.
Yeah, and I think taking reworking the elements, because when you look at how the battles play out, I mean, even though they don't play out mechanically in the same way, all of the elements you remember from those menus are still there.
It's honestly like the best way I think that I could describe it, and I think you'll agree, is that it plays the way it felt when I imagined, these battles while actually playing the original.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like that's like, without going back and actually playing the game, my nostalgia remembers those very slow turn-based battles, which drop down to 15 frames per second.
Yeah.
To look like how they do in this.
Right. In fact, if you're playing one of the remastered editions of the original, one of the things I love is being able to increase
up that speed, boy.
Man. Increasing the speed. Not to mention when you can turn on the limit break thing where it refills your... That's great for grinding, dude.
I love turning off random battles, man.
Oh, I know.
Like...
I like to grind though, and I like the fact that I can speed it up. It makes grinding that used to take 2 hours take 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You know,
it's just those moments where I'm just like, I don't want to deal with a random battle now,
I just want to
and I want to get
to
to a grind spot.
Yeah,
like dude, like speaking of grinding, I'm playing the original Breath of Fire on my Switch right now, and I've been grinding for like 5 hours. God, it's such a slow grind, and I love it. Yeah. Anyway, I love RPGs, guys.
So yes, obviously, the combat system respects the elements that were there before, even tries to recreate some of them with the active time battle meter, or the active time battle system being replaced by the ATB meter, right? Even spell casting having weird delays on it still makes it feel like you're issuing commands. And you can even put the game in classic mode, where
it plays itself a little bit.
It plays itself, and you just issue commands.
So, materia, though.
The materia system is what I want to go to next.
How did you feel about materia?
I felt it was a lot more limiting, but I understand why that is, right? This is what amounted to the first couple hours of the original game. What was a 60-hour some odd game, you're talking about 2 hours of a 60-hour game.
I recently sped through Midgar, and it took me less than 5 hours.
Yeah. So I think there's a reason why it's a little more restrictive.
Sure.
Because they don't want to blow you away.
Right, they don't want to show their entire hand, right? Like people were complaining about, well, how come All's not in there? I guarantee All's going to be in the next game.
All is in there. It's called Magnify.
It's Magnify, but
you only get one of them.
You only get one of them.
But again,
and that's intentional though, right?
Yeah.
Like because I can almost guarantee you'll either get additional Magnify or they'll actually just roll out All in the next installment. Materia though.
I honestly think the combinations in this game, the materia combinations that you can pull off in this game, are a little more. I mean, it's limited, but it's a little more impressive than some of the.
There's
ones
some
you can pull
interesting
off in the
nuance
original.
For sure.
Yeah,
there's
the
some
fact that you can
combos.
only carry one summon at a time in your weapon.
I'll be honest. Summons felt very lackluster to me. I didn't use them a lot. I didn't feel a need to use them.
Every opportunity I get. Because even though sometimes they're not the right damage output or they're not going to take advantage of a weakness, they're a fourth player that does damage to an enemy.
I don't know. Like, I didn't find them to be necessary. I just thought they were cool.
Yeah. This is a fourth person that jumps in that you can give commands to, and then at the end does a cool cutscene where they do a mega attack.
I think my favorite one, honestly, was Fat Chocobo. I loved Fat Chocobo so much.
It was also very limiting to this, right? Because I understand it's supposed to be realistic, right? But there were certain arenas that restricted certain summons, right? You can't summon Leviathan but a handful of times throughout the entire game because you just don't have the space.
The space for it,
He's a big, giant dragon.
Yeah.
Bahamut is the same way. Yeah. Ifrit, Shiva, Fat Chocobo.
Yeah, they're just a little bigger than you.
You can summon them pretty much in any battle.
But yeah, like some ones were cool. For sure. I liked some of the DLC ones that I had.
Cactuar's pretty interesting. Man. When are they going to release them? When are they going to make those other ones available?
A few months, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm ready, man. I want to add Carbuncle into my...
Carbuncle remained useful throughout my entire playthrough.
I know, because he's the debuff guy.
Yeah, right? Like, debuff and heal.
Debuff and heal.
So the rest of the material. Definitely like some of the combos. I did feel like I was a little bit disappointed in the lack of additional like stat increases or decreases on materia. There was some materia that did increase certain stats and stuff.
Sure.
But in the original game, that changed up a lot of things because like it was like a double-edged sword. Like there were things that would increase your magic by +2, but it would also reduce your overall HP percentage.
Or HP, yeah, whatever.
And things like that. I think that was maybe a bit of a missed opportunity for me, but I also understand that the original materia system was almost a little overly complex. It also made the character. It really made the characters feel samey to me.
Yeah.
Because and in this that's not the case.
No.
In this, like your characters do different things.
You're limited by what you have, so you have to be creative.
And like you're not gonna necessarily load out your materia the same way because certain materia synergize really well with other characters. Yeah. What's the defense one? I forget what it is, but I forget the name of it.
But like Magic Up, right? Yeah. Magic Up goes really well with Aerith, who already has a ridiculous magic stat.
And
but when you take it up with the 2 Magic Ups that you get in the game,
it's ridiculous.
Now she can use Fyra and deal just as much damage as if she was using Fyra.
Precisely. But the defense one, which I can't remember the name of it right now, goes really good on Barret.
Of course, yeah.
Like Barret is a great tank in this game.
Oh, he is. Not to mention some of his abilities allow him to absorb damage because he's the tank.
Yeah.
Right? You treat him as an actual tank.
But what is also interesting though is each, like going back to the weapons, is that there's 6 weapons each for the characters, and each weapon can kind of change up different things. So like Barret does have a weapon that can make him into a supplementary caster.
Sure.
That's really viable.
Absolutely.
So that was really cool there.
He has a decent amount of magic points.
I think my big thing with Materia was just like I reached a point where like I was just burning through leveling him up, and what really holds that system back in this is not the utilitarian use of it, it's the menu.
Sure.
The menu for Materia is atrocious in this game. You cannot quick sort through things. They give you a preset way of sorting them. I
disagree, because if you use the triggers while you're on the Materia menu, it will jump to the next page.
It does jump to the next page, but
if you're on the regular menu and you hit R1 or L1, it will bring up everybody's Materia and allow you to switch them.
I didn't have a problem with it in my first playthrough. Where it became a problem was in hard mode.
Well, you're switching Materia constantly in hard mode,
and that it slowed things down a lot. Sure. Like
Materia management is almost a game in and of itself.
One review that I watched, the guy, I don't know if I can name drop, but there's a guy named Tim Rogers,
sure,
who used to work for Kotaku. He no longer does. He went independent. He does some of my favorite game reviews. He did a 3-hour analysis of Final Fantasy VII Remake.
We're not going to go for 3 hours,
but he actually showed that he had spent something like 3.5 hours just in menus, just like changing out his layout and stuff. That kind of stinks.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel the same about like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but it didn't deter my gaming experience. It didn't deter me from having fun while I was playing the game.
For sure.
How many times did you hear that map sound in Breath of the Wild?
For sure, but I think they're two very different experiences.
Well, of course.
And Final Fantasy VII is very just kinetic and frenetic and just moving. So for me, it did become very noticeable at a certain point that like a lot of times there's just this hard stop that I would have liked a little bit more work put in just to make that not so frequent.
Sure.
But look, man, these are nitpicks at this point.
These are very nitpicks.
Gameplay wise, the game really does nail it.
Okay. So let's talk real quick about, before because we're getting close here, but let's talk real quick about a couple more things. I want to talk about hard mode a little bit, and I want to talk about the ending to the game, the story, the ending to the game. So first, let's talk about hard mode.
I love hard mode.
It is like playing a different game. You were not wrong when you told me that. It is very much like playing a different game. And I think it goes into what you were just saying, because you do spend a lot more time thinking about what material you're going to be using. What enemies are you going to encounter in this area? What are they weak against? Right? Not to mention, the game gives you the option, if you come across a battle that you weren't prepared for, you can skip to right before that battle so that you can prepare for it.
Loadout, yeah.
Right. So I think the game is conscious of that. The game is conscious that when you play it on hard mode, you really have to be looking at what you're doing.
So I think we should mention the big things about hard mode that make it hard mode. It's not just that the enemies have more HP and things like that it's more difficult that way. It takes away your ability to use items, period.
Yeah.
It's not
no
just
potions,
like, not just like in battle. You cannot use items at all. The other thing is that in the game, there are rest points, which are benches, which
instead of save points, benches.
Which good on the team for putting the old save symbol on the benches. Thought that was really cool.
Beautiful.
But those benches in normal playthroughs heal you and restore your MP. There is no way to restore MP between chapters without using like different abilities and things like
boxes,
that.
destroying boxes,
or destroying
the
boxes.
MP shards. Yeah.
This changes everything.
Right. Resource management becomes, your magic points essentially become a resource that you have to manage. Right.
Absolutely.
You can't just blow through all your spells and then refill them later. It does refill everything at the beginning of each chapter, though. So
Thank
that
goodness.
is nice. You get to the boss and you've saved that magic. Well, now you can unload it on the boss because the start of the next chapter is going to give it back to you.
It does this really interesting existential dread sort of thing on chapters that you know there's more than one boss.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was just amazing. Now, I'm a Dark Souls guy.
You are.
Everyone knows me knows I love Dark Souls.
You like punishing yourself?
This thrilled me. Like,
yeah.
Whenever I like that feeling of, oh crap, what am I going to do?
Right.
How am I going to be able to get through this? I just thought that was an awesome way to really, change up the entire way you play. Because, yeah, like, you have to take specific materia loadout to get through this.
Yeah.
Chakra and prayer are mandatory.
Yeah, and honestly, I did it a little bit before I was completely at max. I would honestly recommend waiting until your materia is... The materia that you use most frequently is maxed out. Yeah. Because my chakra was not maxed out, and my prayers were not maxed out. And that sucks. Those are essential. Yeah, those are healing spells that you don't have to spend MP on.
Also, having more than one elemental materia, really huge. And
there's only 2 in the game.
And what sucks is that I only had one elemental materia.
Yeah, you missed the second one.
I totally missed
Walked
the
right
second one.
It,
It wasn't using a guide, so didn't know about it. Jason's like, dude, don't you have two elemental? I'm like, there's 2 elementals? Because that's a materia that won't well, that's right. They don't even birth new materia in this game, do they?
No.
That's right.
Materias do not birth.
But that's a materia that won't respawn, I should say.
Right.
That's one. Okay, so there's one qualm I have with hard mode, right? Or just basically in any repeat playthrough, but especially in hard mode, it still gives you items. Why? Right. Why? I feel like they could have replaced that with some things that would have been more interesting.
Sure.
But the worst thing in the world, and I didn't even notice this until you pointed it out, is that every cool materia that you find on a repeat playthrough becomes a god darn freaking restore or a restore material.
Yeah.
You just keep getting restore
heal materia or potions.
Like, why?
Every time someone was going to give you something cool on a subsequent playthrough, you just get a potion.
I have 37 of these.
I got to the point where I start selling everything off past 50.
For sure. And GP becomes pointless at a certain point.
God,
it's
But so the hard mode definitely, I think, it has its challenges. The reason I think that I ultimately was convinced by you, I might add, to play hard mode is because it was the only way to finish maxing out all the weapons.
Correct.
Because on hard mode, to incentivize you, they don't give you, new stuff, but they do give you the manuscripts that give you 10 skill points to spend on your weapon upgrades. And it's the only way to max out all the weapons.
Yeah.
And every weapon, when it's maxed out, has 6 materia slots. I loved that.
Yeah.
That was something that I said, you know what? That's why I'm playing hard. I want 6 materia slots.
It was a brilliant maneuver on their part. What's also cool is that as you unlock those, it also sort of makes things a little easier. Like hard mode starts to become just a little bit more manageable because, okay, now I have this ability that's going to leave me with 1 HP if I would have taken a death blow.
Exactly.
Where I didn't have that before. So it definitely, keeps
Also, how did I
going.
not know for so long that subversion and warding maxed out prevents instant death? How did I not know that? I literally had to have someone tell me that. I saw it in a video. Someone was like, so you're fighting this, you got to prevent, because you're fighting the Hell House, and he's going to summon Tonberries, and they can kill you instantly. Subversion and warding at max will prevent instant death.
Yeah, I didn't know about that till you had told me about it.
Yeah, did not know that was a combination that would work.
My favorite, so hard mode was one of my favorite things. I had already beaten it. Jason had just started it. Because I was just like, dude, you gotta do it. I remember the first night. I remember the first night. Like, Mike, I've been playing this game for 3 hours and I can't get past the first boss on hard mode. I'm not gonna do this. Like this is pointless. I'm not gonna do it.
The Scorpion Sentinel was tripping me up.
And I'm just like, dude, put on this materia. Just trust me, put on this materia. You'll get through it. The first boss is really hard. It gets a little bit more manageable, and you got through it. So my other favorite moment though is when is in chapter 9. Before Hell House, I'm talking to Jason, and Jason doesn't mind little minor spoilers and stuff. So he was like, "Can you give me some advice before I actually go and do it?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, it's pretty cool, but when he throws out the 3 Tonberries and he stops, he's like, wait, what? He's gonna summon Tonberries?"
Well, no, you had said, well, you got to deal with the monsters he summons, and my reaction was, Hell House can summon monsters?
Yeah.
And then you said, oh, I guess that only happens on hard mode. And I was like, you're damn right it only happens on hard mode.
So the best part is I get a call later that night. Yeah, dude, that boss was easy. I beat him the first try.
I did.
Dude, like, it took me, like, seriously. The bosses I had trouble with, Jason had no trouble with.
The bosses Mike had no trouble with. I had all the trouble with.
Oh, Eligor.
Eligor was not a problem.
Oh god, it was such a problem.
It was not a problem.
It took me 7 tries.
The things
to beat Eligor.
The thing in the middle blocks all the spears he throws down at you, and as long as you hit him with wind in the air, he comes right back down.
I was playing this before like all the guides had started
coming out. It wasn't a guide. I had assessed him, and it tells you that he does that.
Sure. I did not take assess because I'm an idiot.
As soon as they gave it to me, I did it to everybody.
But like, you know, there's like I was completely blind on every little piece of it. My final favorite moment was the day that you finally were trying to get to the secret boss of the game.
The secret boss of the game is behind. The secret boss of the game is a joke, first of all. You want to tell me this is the hardest boss in the game?
No,
that's a joke.
It's not. The hardest boss.
The hardest boss is the one you face right before it.
But, dude, I remember, like, I was at work, and Jason's like, dude, can I talk? Can you talk right now? I'm like, I'm kind of busy, man. What's going on? Dude, I've been on this boss for 6 hours. I spent my entire day trying to get past this boss.
I spent the whole day. I didn't beat it until like 10 o'clock that night. No. I spent the whole day trying to beat that boss.
I told Jason I beat him in 3 tries, and he was really angry at me. That you know, I don't even want to spoil that. Anyone who's listening, I think they should have the fun of fighting the second to last boss before the joke of a last boss.
Well, the problem with the gauntlet too is if you lose to one, you have to fight them all again. You don't get to start at the one you lost. Yeah. And that's the terrible thing, right? Even in Kingdom Hearts, they let you choose the layer you start at, right? You've already done all of this in the Coliseum. Do you want to start from the end? Yes, I do.
That second to last boss, man, the bamboozle moment is one of my favorite things. Yeah. And it's just like, oh, that's where they are.
Yeah.
I was wondering how come we didn't have to deal with that. Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
So, in any case, hard mode, if you are the kind of person that likes to challenge yourself, I'd highly recommend it because I am typically not the kind of person that likes to challenge myself. When I play most games, I put them on story mode because I don't really care about a challenge. And that's not to say that I don't like a challenge, but I like story more than I like challenge. So I love that games nowadays are balancing that, where you can just say, this is story mode, where you'll still do all the stuff that you do in the regular mode, but it won't be as challenging, so you can enjoy the story. That's not to say that I have not played God of War on Give Me God of War mode, because I have, but I'm completely maxed out at everything now.
So now it's reasonable.
It's reasonable to play it on that difficulty, and I will try that difficulty. I mean, the only one that I won't do is Jedi Fallen Order, because I don't like Dark Souls, and that's what it becomes if you put it on any difficulty other than Give Me a Story. But so, real quickly before we get out of here, I don't think that we have spoiled too much as we've been talking about this, but this is something that I want to spoil. Because I want to talk about it.
Okay.
And it's the ending. So, tell me, first of all, when you saw that you had to fight Sephiroth one-on-one as Cloud, did you not shit yourself? Because I shit myself. I was like, what? I'm not ready for this. Sephiroth is way too badass. Now, not to say it was a hard boss fight, because it's not a hard boss fight.
Did I shit myself?
But I crapped myself. It was like playing Kingdom Hearts 3 and showing me I had to fight Ansem and Xemnas at the same time. Mm-hmm. I was like, what? That's unfair.
I was just excited, but... I'm gonna be honest with you. I started to suspect some things around chapter 14 of this game. It's a 18 game chapter.
Yeah, 18 chapter game.
Chapter 14. I remember I wrote a post on Facebook and I said I don't think this is a remake.
Sure.
I said I think that they're pulling one over on us. And I was right.
You're very much in the camp that thinks this is a sequel.
It is both a remake and it is 100% a sequel.
I think that it's important for the listeners to understand, right? The reason that Mike thinks it's a sequel is because it's very obvious to anybody who played the original game, even if you don't think it's a sequel, it's obvious to me that Sephiroth and Aerith know a little bit too much about the world.
The Sephiroth that you're facing throughout this game is the Sephiroth that you defeated in the original Final Fantasy VII. It's the Sephiroth that comes back in Advent Children.
Yeah.
And now he's up to fuckery.
Yeah. And I think, you know, one of the things that's, like I said, even very obvious to players who played the original game is they just seem to know too much, right? They just, when Tifa meets Aerith for the first time, Aerith reacts as if she's meeting an old friend, and Tifa reacts confused.
Like, who the hell is
what?
this chick? Yeah.
Hi, right? So there's very clear evidence throughout the game's narrative that they know what's going on. And obviously we can, knowing the game story, we could say, well, it's because they join with the live stream. Sure. And the live stream makes them a part of every era of this planet's history.
I think Sephiroth decides that he is going to continue his plan. And like, if you've watched Advent Children, if you've read the prequel novel to Advent Children, it's very much in line with him to, try and like continue on that legacy.
Sure.
His mimetic legacy.
Yeah.
And it didn't succeed in the Final Fantasy VII Prime timeline.
It didn't even succeed in Advent Children.
So now he's going to basically split things off and do things by going back to a point where the characters don't have as much knowledge, they don't have as much training.
Right, he feels he can influence the outcome.
Right.
Yeah. And change his fate.
And I think Aerith just met that gambit, right? Like, it's just like,
I think Aerith is trying to stop that from happening.
Yeah. So like,
so she's a little bit trying to maintain the timeline, but a little bit trying to deviate from it.
And as far as like the whole maintaining the timeline thing, right? So what's so interesting is like the whispers, right?
Yeah.
In the game. What's so interesting to me is it's a bit meta, right? The whispers
are us.
Yeah. They're
as
all
soon
the
as they
fans.
told me what they were, I was like,
they're all the fans that are like, no, don't change it. I just want a 1-for-1 remake. I just want straight turn-based combat. I don't want you to go and introduce these weird new characters. Like, what the hell's a roach? Like, I don't want any of this stuff, right? That's the whispers and I think that
by defeating them at the end of the game, which you do.
It's saying
you're showing to the game that you're ready to go in a different direction.
Like, look, we're still going to give you a lot of what you know. You're still going to go to Calm.
I think the locations will still remain the same,
and there's and a lot of big story beats. Like there's still going to be things that are just so iconic that we're going to see.
You can't leave them out.
You're going to go to Cosmo Canyon.
Absolutely.
You're going to get that amazing
the cave of the GI and fight that undead monster.
The amazing score when Red 13, when Nanaki finds out that his father's not a coward, and it switches, like you get that shift in tone there.
It's beautiful.
That's going to happen.
I can't wait for that to happen.
That's going to happen.
Remake.
You're going to see Bugenhagen. And I think Bugenhagen.
I think
Bugenhagen.
Did you say Bugenhagen? I always said Bugenhagen.
You say Bugenhagen? Yeah. I said Bugenhagen.
Tomato.
I guess it's Häagen-Dazs, but isn't that 2 A's? But you're going to get that, and I think he's going to be really important because I think that he is going to introduce the idea that this is like one of many timelines. Before he talked about like the cosmos and everything and meteor and all that. I think he's going to be like, guys, something is off.
Right. And if he was the one who was already studying the cosmos and he saw that change, he would notice.
I think that's going to be really important.
I think that's going to be very important. And I wonder how they're going to animate him. Because in the original, he like floats.
So interesting thing. If you ever look at key artwork, he like it looks like he's just got like a weird green butt.
Yeah.
That's actually a floating platform powered by materia.
Oh, well, I'm going to be happy to see that actually represented.
He's just kind of little. Yeah. That's all it is. Yeah, like if you look at the actual like
he floats around so you can be eye level with other people.
Like I always thought I was like, wow, he doesn't have legs,
right?
But he does. He's just on a floating platform.
Okay, cool.
But so all those key things are going to happen. But honestly, by severing, the ties with the whispers, that to me that's the creator saying, hey, look, we're free to do whatever we want now.
I also don't necessarily believe that we are done with the whispers. I know that you're in the camp that does.
You're not wrong.
But I don't think one single harbinger. I think this was a harbinger for Midgar. I think this was a harbinger for the moment that Zack was supposed to die in. Yeah. And they stopped that from happening. And it's evident in the fact that we watch Zack walk away from that battle.
Sure. For sure.
I don't think we're done with the whispers. I think the whispers are still going to be trying to keep the timeline intact.
Not only do I agree with you, there is actual empirical evidence that you are correct. If you go and watch cutscenes after the whispers are so-called defeated, you actually see them if you freeze frame things around Sephiroth at various moments when he takes really intense blows. Whenever he gets hurt, you see whispers kind of doing it because he absorbs them at the end.
Right.
You're right. You're not done with those.
Yeah, I don't think the whispers are going. I don't think Tetsuya Nomura is the kind of guy who introduces a concept like that and doesn't play with it throughout his entire story.
But all I know is that I get why some customers, we're consumers, right?
Yeah,
I get why some fans are disappointed that they didn't just do a 1-for-1. But for me, I find it far more interesting to not know what the hell's going to happen. I want to do something different.
Next. Yeah. I like the idea that we're still going to visit and have the key elements of the story there. But even in this first game, right? This first part, when the plate is about to fall, right? Yeah. Which is a big moment in the game. It's a beautiful moment in the game. And Aerith goes to save Marlene. In the original game, Aerith goes to save Marlene. That's it. We don't get to see that happen. We don't get to understand how that happened. And then she just shows up
on the helicopter.
And
Sung slaps the shit out of her.
Yes, he does.
I'm really glad that that's not in this, because in all the other media, and even in other parts of Final Fantasy VII, it's implied that Sung actually kind of cares about Aerith and has watched over her since she was a kid, and he is one of the reasons why they never went and took her back to Shinra. It's because he basically kept an eye on her.
Sure.
And basically was like, I'll just make sure she's okay, because he did not like the treatment of her and Ilthana.
Right. But so, in addition to having that moment within this new game, we also get to play that moment. We get to take control of Aerith. We get to run through Sector 7 in a panic as the plate's about to fall. We get to go find Marlene. And honestly, if that scene between Aerith and Marlene did not bring a tear to your eye, you have no soul. That is one of the most beautiful scenes. When Marlene has tears in her eyes and she says, "Are they going to destroy our house? Are they going to destroy the bar?" Like, I cried, right? Like, I'm on the verge of tears just talking about it because it's beautiful. Yeah. And to get that kind of characterization and acting ability out of this little girl who's doing the voice for Marlene is great. Yeah. She's beautiful. I love the deviations from the story.
Sure.
Right? I love to see these moments between the lines.
It gives so many more moments room to breathe. Yeah. And like you get to
really
get
to understand the character beats and how they move.
For sure. Because like one of the things that we had talked about, before this was just like the original translation of Final Fantasy VII was pretty poor. Yeah. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. Once again, name drop the guy Tim Rogers. He has an amazing series that's entirely about talking about the translation. It's like a 10-hour video series that just talks about the differences in translations. But one of the things that kind of didn't come through in the original with Aerith was how she was kind of playful and, kind of was a smartass. Yeah. And I love in this game, she curses. Dude, like
only one time.
How great was that though? When she's
I'm not just some damsel in distress that needs to be saved.
Yeah, false.
Shit.
Dude, I grew up being on Team Tifa, 100%. There's a couple of reasons for that, so to speak.
All right, we need to go into that.
But I was 13, right?
Right.
Tifa made sense.
We were teenage children. Yeah.
As a near 37-year-old, I adore Aerith in this game.
Aerith is great.
She that performance is like beautiful and also heartbreaking, especially if you know what we think is going to happen. It's just kind of melancholy and.
And if you haven't had the chance to do it yet, you personally and anybody out there listening, you can watch the voice actress who plays Aerith on Twitch playing the game, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, she even had
that girl is amazing.
She even had the guy that played Barrett on there.
Yeah. So if you haven't watched that, it's a beautiful little series to watch.
I believe her name's Brianna White.
Yeah, it's a beautiful little series to watch. It's the voice actress for Aerith playing the game.
When she sees herself for the first time on camera, she starts crying, and it's adorable.
It's beautiful.
It's super adorable.
When she makes that goofy noise when they're in the sewers, she like pauses the game to explain what she was going for there, and she was mimicking Don Corneo, because Don Corneo makes that noise earlier in the game. She was mimicking Don Corneo with her own level of
it's like
disgust.
A weird like horse or donkey.
Yeah. So overall though, and I want you, if you can do it, right, just to pick me out one single moment, because I know what mine is. Favorite moment in the remake.
So my favorite moment in the remake is going to be completely out of left field, probably for you and the listeners. It's not any big moment whatsoever. The moment that just completely just captured my love of this game originally and now was actually a new song in the game.
The soundtrack.
It's when you're in Sector 5. It's a new song by Nobuyo Uematsu. Yeah. He didn't contribute a lot of new music to the game. And I'm trying to think of the name of the song. It's Shattered Skies or something like that. Or
Sure.
something like that. I forget, but it's just this beautiful acoustic guitar, and it just, for some reason, it just caught me really off guard because first of all, it was new. It wasn't
Right.
in the original game.
It's not music you recognize,
but it fit in really, really well, and it just kind of encompassed this whole feeling surrounding the remake and leading up to it for all these years, and here it was.
Yeah.
And I sat there and just let that play for a good 10 minutes and just kind of took in Sector 5, which was greatly expanded in this. Such an interesting area. And what's really cool about that song also, I didn't know this at the time until I beat the game, is that another version of it is the theme of Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the ending theme.
Okay.
And come to find out,
That song at the end that plays during the credits is beautiful.
Come to
It's a
find
beautiful
out,
song.
that song, and this, to me, this lead gives even more credence to my thought that this is a sequel. That song is, according to Uematsu, is supposed to be written from the perspective of Cloud about Aerith when she died.
Ah, okay.
Go back and listen to those lyrics.
Sure, yeah.
And
yeah.
essentially, like, to me, that's even more showing the hand of, like,
This is less a remake and more a sequel.
yeah, and it's, I don't know, like, it's such an awesome song, and the fact that, like, this moment that just, like, that I stopped ended up being more important than I even realized.
Sure.
That made it even more important to me.
Yeah, it impacted you more than you thought it would.
For sure.
Yeah. So for me, it's easy. The best moment in this remake, not only because it expands upon the original ideas, but because it just teaches a good lesson about the world, is the entire sequence at the Honeybee Inn. The proprietor of the Honeybee Inn, Andrea Rodeo, is a new character to the story. The three people who run the wall market, basically, right? Other than Don Corneo, they're his like three generals. Are great characters. Chocobo Sam is Sam Elliott. He's a cowboy.
Completely.
He's a great character.
It's so good.
Madame M, also great character. She's a hand massage. She runs a hand massage parlor, which, yes, insert hand job joke here.
Oh god! Did you do? You had to have done.
I've done all three. Yeah,
and,
yeah.
like, they're just so different. It's so
Oh,
good.
it's creepy as hell, though. But no, it's Andrea Rodea that really stands out to me. Not because he's a particularly great character, but because what his spot in Wall Market represents is no judgment. We don't care who you are. We don't care what you're into. We don't care what sexuality you are. We don't care what gender you are. We can fulfill those desires here, right? And that whole, the little dance minigame just comes out of nowhere. But I had so much fun with it, right? I even saved before doing it so that I could do it perfectly.
I love that, like, Cloud doesn't resist that.
No. At first he does, but then he sees Aerith in the audience cheering him, and he goes, all right, whatever.
And he gets into it.
He gets into it.
Cloud is such a goofball. And,
Yeah.
and he was always supposed to be, but we didn't get that in the original game.
No.
And he is a goofball in this game.
He is.
You know?
And not to mention...
The high five? Like,
yeah. Not to mention the song Stand Up is a beautiful song, right? It's literally a song about shoving away your fears and being who you are. Even if the society at large thinks that's strange, who cares? Be who you are, stand proud. And it's at the end when Cloud is in a dress, in makeup, standing before the audience, no one in the audience isn't cheering. It's a beautiful moment in this Wall Market world when someone embraces who they are and doesn't shy away from it. And then you have Andrea, right, who takes Cloud's hand, engages him in a dance, and then says, "Don't ever be afraid, Cloud."
None of it is played for a joke.
No.
Like, in Final Fantasy VII, it was a little bit more... The original was a little bit
Sure.
more played for a joke. So I find two things interesting here. Two observations about your moment. First of all, I think it's really cool that both of us had things that were tied to a musical element.
Yeah.
Because honestly, the music in this game is phenomenally good.
I mean, yeah, the main chorus of the song is stand up, cast your fears aside, stand up, bear your soul with pride.
The other thing, though,
beautiful,
is I think that not only is it cool that they did that in a video game, it's particularly impressive to me that a game out of Japan did that, because that is not really them.
No,
and
not at all.
It's nice to see some progress. Obviously, that progress needs to happen everywhere, but the repression about those things in Japan is worse than it is in the West.
Sure, absolutely.
So good on that team for making that statement.
Yeah, beauty is an expression of the heart.
They honestly they nail a lot of things. Like Barrett could have been played off as just a racial stereotype, and I know a lot of people were afraid of that with just the initial reveal.
Yeah, when you look at Barrett in the original game, he's a racial stereotype.
He's Mr. T.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he still has that sort of sound.
But he also has layers.
There's so many layers.
There's layers to Barrett.
Dude, the
line. Father is the layer that you don't see a lot in the game, but when you see it, you realize this man is softer than he lets on.
Like I can't quote it verbatim, but like the line about a good man, who works, for someone evil, is still complicit.
Yeah.
That's not the exact quote, but
he's basically saying your complacency in not doing something makes you at fault.
It's like you can be a good person.
Yes.
But if
you stay silent while evil occurs.
Yeah, if you knowingly, still work for Shinra and you know what they are, then there's no excuse for that. Yeah. You have to do something. So I'm doing something.
Right.
Barrett is very well written in this game.
Yeah.
Maybe the best written character in the game, in my opinion.
Right. But the reason that moment, the Honeybee Inn sticks out so much to me is because it teaches a lesson about gender fluidity that I think is so important in our world. Because when I was a kid, when you were a kid, we watched Homer Simpson dress as a woman. We watched Al Bundy dress as a woman.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Cross-dressing was not something that was weird to us. It was something that was part of our world. But somewhere along the line, our generation forgot that. That there are people who are different than you. And that doesn't mean we have to make fun of them. Just because they're not you doesn't mean they're any less of a person. And I think that's an important lesson, not only back then, which they played it kind of for laughs, but today, that's a very important lesson for us to understand.
It's more important than ever.
In a world where we see transgender people, in a world where we see homosexual people, should have a voice.
Yeah, and I mean, again, it's more important than ever.
Should not be ostracized because of who they are.
I mean, recently, not to get into it, but I mean, when you have somebody like J.K. Rowling, who so many people look up to, who has tons of transgender and, gender fluid fans, and just fans of all walks of life, for her to come out and, make the comments that she did about
we don't need to
gender.
talk about those comments.
It's what she said. It's just a little bit disheartening, but it feels good to see freaking little video game here.
Sure, because imagine you're a cis beta male, right? And you're playing through this awesome JRPG action RPG game, and then you get to a moment where the game forces you to dance and dress like a woman. Yeah. Well, whether you agree with that or not, if you want to play this game, that's what you got to do.
You got to do it.
You don't have a choice. You don't get to say, no, I don't want to dress as a woman. No, you're going to dress as a woman.
Hey, if that's the place that you stop playing this game, good on you. Goodbye.
Yeah, exactly.
You
weren't the audience.
Yeah, you were not. You were clearly not the audience.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, I recalled the song that I was referring to is called "Hollow Skies," and then the ending theme is just called "Hollow." Okay. So I said Shattered Skies. I want to make, if you want to listen to it, Hollow Skies.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
But so that's going to bring us to the end. Do you have any final thoughts to share with our audience, Mike?
Honestly, just play Final Fantasy VII Remake.
A masterpiece.
Is it flawless? No, if it were, I probably wouldn't like it as much. Exactly. I love every little jagged edge. I love going through and finding. It's such a beautiful looking game that it's almost fun to go and find the low res doors. Again, what did I say this game was? It's a scavenger hunt. So I spent time just going and finding the crappy looking things because there's so few of it. That it's almost fun to see wow, this is where they cut the corners. But whether this is your first Final Fantasy or if it's your 20th one. It's funny. There's 15 Final Fantasy mainline titles, but there's lots of more of them than that.
That's true.
Give it a shot. Go into it with an open mind if you're someone that's more of a traditionalist. Enjoy enjoy the one for one bits, but just appreciate the new that you're getting, because you're getting more Final Fantasy VII.
Right.
You know, if you love Final Fantasy VII, you still have Final Fantasy VII.
And the story doesn't have to play out in the same way in order to get the point across.
If you want that original game, you can go
play
and
it.
play that original game. Go along with this ride. Just sit back and enjoy it, because it's a hell of a ride.
Absolutely. I would agree. Well, so that's going to bring us to the end, everyone. I want to say thanks to Mike.
Thank you for always having me on.
As always, for being our video game expert extraordinaire and coming on and talking video games. I will say, you are probably the most video game enthusiastic person that I know in my life.
Which is really interesting, because my game loves are very niche. I am a JRPG guy. I can't talk about Call of Duty. I don't care.
I can't talk about Call of Duty either, so we wouldn't really talk about Call of Duty on this show.
Hey, there we go. We're good.
I mean, I did download Call of Duty World War II because it was free, and I want to play the story mode, but I have no interest in playing the multiplayer mode at all. Yeah. I like World War II. World War II is one of my favorite. Well, favorite is a weird word, right?
That's my favorite war.
It was my favorite war to learn about, right? Because again, history repeats itself, and if we don't remember what that history is, we're doomed to repeat it.
That's more relevant than ever.
It is. We will be doomed to repeat it. But if you guys dig what we're putting down, do me a favor, head on over to entertainthegeeky.com. There's plenty of stuff up there. As we start to see things kind of ease back into a normal routine, I'll probably be able to convince more people to come over and do the show with me. The problem I'm having right now is I've gotten to the point where I don't enjoy doing the show by myself anymore, because I hate just being the only one talking. I like to get different people's opinions. I like to have someone that will challenge me on things every now and again. So I want to reformat the show in that regard. But so we will probably have Mike back on again in the future. I know we want to talk about the Resident Evil remakes.
For sure.
I would like to do an episode where we just talk about remake culture in general.
Ooh.
Where we talk about what it does for the gaming industry. Is it hurting the gaming industry? So if you're digging this, be sure to stay tuned, because we'll get to that eventually as well. You can check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/entertainmentgeeky. We are on Twitter at entertaingeeky, and we are on Instagram at entertaingeeky.
Wash your hands and don't be racist.
Yes, wash your hands and don't be racist. And until next time out there, everyone, stay geeky and stay safe.